So thank you, Ina, and welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the final session, the sixth and final session of the Sadhana of Mahamudra tape um, program. Um, we have a few things on the agenda today, so I want to get started right away and uh, make sure we can get through these various elements in a timely fashion. So I'll saying a few words to introduce the Vidyadhara's talk today in a minute or two. Um, Today is kind of family storytelling, which I'll say more about in a few minutes. But because he doesn't end this particular seminar by going through the rest of the sadhana, I would like to do that. So in the last week, we were in the section of the sadhana that is about offering and surrendering. So ultimately, we give everything in this context. So the understanding is that um, from ego clinging perspective, we regard phenomena as our possession, and we centralize onto that. So in that section of the sadhana, we give that away. We give everything away. So the section that follows from that, that leads naturally into that, is a guru yoga section. Yoga means union. So this section is where we uh, allow our mind to merge with the mind of the guru. So it's not like you make a kind of a concoction, a mix of you and the guru. You're merging with the mind of the lineage and of the gurus, which has different kinds of qualities. So in the Guru Yoga section, each of the gurus mentioned in the sadhana, as part of the visualization, has a set of 4 lines celebrating particular qualities or accomplishments of that figure. So the theme today will be that um, from a simplistic point of view, from ego mind, you would think all enlightenment, everybody who's enlightened would be the same, like vanilla ice cream of the mind. Um, but in fact, in the enlightened mind, there are vast qualities and all kinds of wonderful differentiation. So, in these Guru Yoga lines, which actually, according to tradition, great gurus will compose their own um, um, Guru Yogas, celebrating their particular qualities. So, um, for example, the lines for Mikyo Dorje are hum. Ah, Mikyo Dorje fills the whole of space. He is the Vajra joy which sends out luminous light. He's the energy of music and the Lord of messengers. He is the wrathful action which cleanses all impurities. And then for Rangjung Dorje, the third Karmapa. It's Hum Hum Hum, seeing the Bodhisattva Rangjung Dorje is like discovering the wish-fulfilling gem. He removes the poverty of oneself and others. He is the source of all that is needed. I supplicate his wisdom body. So these Guru Yoga verses are celebrating particular kinds of enlightened qualities, so they're quite uplifting. You know, that he removes the poverty of oneself and others, no poverty whatsoever in body, speech, and mind. So following that section of identifying with the mind of the guru and the lineage, there's a kind of a meditation instruction at the very most sublime level, at the level of self-liberation, something we've been talking about. In other words, in order to liberate ego clinging and negativity, in this context, it liberates itself by itself without the need of any other action from outside. So it's like if you take a pill to attack a particular problem, that pill has a side effect of some kind. So you may eliminate or ameliorate the problem, but then you have this other thing that you have to deal with. And this is a consistent aspect on our gradual path, that we do something, we're dealing with the negativity, so we demonize that negativity so that we avoid it, but then we're left with the fact that we've created an enemy of this particular quality. At the level of self-liberation, it's completely pure. You don't have the residue, the side effect, because these ego stains never needed to exist in the first place. They can simply dissolve. So this meditation instruction quite simply says, whatever occurs in the realm of the mind, such as thoughts of the five poisons, one should neither lead nor follow. Just let it remain in its true state and reach the liberation of Dharmakaya. I supplicate the Guru of self-liberated, perfect insight. So at that point, we begin the recitation of the mantra, and mantra recitation is a culmination within a sadhana of where our ordinary mind is unified with enlightened mind during that time. Now, of course, half the time, I might reach that section and my visualization is very weak, if existent at all, and I have to rouse it again. And, so, we're ordinary human beings. So, we stumble along as best we can. Nevertheless, the point of the mantra recitation at that point is that you are simply inhabiting this in visualization of a mandala that is sacred and free from ego and represents Buddhahood and all those qualities that you've just celebrated in the Guru Yoga. Eventually, the mantra recitation ends gradually, and the visualization completely dissolves. And then, for a little while, you rest in complete formless meditation. No technique. And then the sadhana ends with confirming and celebrating celebratory verses. So When the precious guru approaches, the whole of space is filled with rainbow light, etc., etc. Various meditation experiences and flashes of insight occur. In the mandala of Mahamudra shines moonlight, pure and all-pervading. All apparent phenomena are the play of the mind. All qualities are complete within the mind. I, the yogi, am fearless and free from occupations, etc., etc. So at this point, we would end with generally with some sitting practice. Now, at the end of a sadhana like this, it's not like you're high on a drug and you need to recover, you need to come down. Just like you've taken a train ride, it's your stop. Now you're going to get off and you're going to do the next thing. And you probably take that train again. Next time it rolls around and it's time to do so. And there's an effect that comes from it. So it's not about having an experience, collecting experience. It's simply about entering into this mandala for a period of time together with your fellow Sangha members and allowing there to be some kind of after effect. And, the more you make a relationship with it, the more you study it, the more you come to have a better feel under your fingernails for what this is about. So that brings me to today's talk, where Trungpa Rinpoche is doing some family storytelling and telling the story briefly of how the sadhana came into being. Somebody's raising their hand. Is the question?
No, it's just a technical issue. Please
okay.
go on.
Okay, so this is we're being welcomed into the family of the lineage, and in particular, the Kagyu and Nyingma lineages, the lineages of Mahamudra, and as Trungpa Rinpoche generally refers to it, Maha'ati. We'll say more about those lineages after the talk. And the spirit that we're being welcomed to this feast table of the lineage is in the spirit of the movement that was started in the 19th century called the Rime movement, or the non-sectarian movement. So it's a non-sectarian approach, both in the technical sense of not having various traditions such as Nyingma and Kagyu and Sakya, etc., battling for supremacy or territory or who's the best, and but it's also non-sectarian in a deep spiritual and psychological sense of not approaching the path as gathering, acquiring attainments, and furthering one's spiritual ambition and trying to one up and be the most important and the best. And the Vidyadhara indicates that has happened and can happen and did happen at various times in the history of lineages, and why the Rime attitude is so important, and why he wrote the sadhana to celebrate the richness of these lineages and the possibilities they offer for you, while also helping us to understand that together we need to police the spiritual materialism that could emerge as we enter into such a profound path. So I think without further ado, let's start the video. Thank you.
Yes.
Similarly, this is the last day of our seminar. Subject that we have covered, we've gone through. Connected with general attitude to this particular principle. On the very safe side, and the sadhana can be discussed much deeper and further, but I feel in some sense hesitation to get into unnecessary problems that if people don't have understanding of it, it could become a further confusion than any realization. So interestingly, nevertheless, that I have managed to say everything, and the subjects that we covered contains a lot of things that also have connections at a deeper level. I suppose you have to wait and think and read over your particular notes and things like that. It is a traditional style to have such sadhana has been written. It is traditional also that sadhana was written in a certain special environment, and also it is traditional that sadhana is written by certain particular person who has a feeling about this subject. Cut a long story short at this point, because of the tremendous corruption and tremendous confusion and the lack of faith and lack of practice that took place in the Tibetan Buddhism, generally in Tibet, a lot of teachers, spiritual leaders, worked very hard trying to rectify that particular problem. Each time it's failure, except a few dedicated students can relate to that particular basic thing. And also it is connected with some sense of lack of practice, that ritualism becomes main important field. Performing ritual, even if you're doing practice, just you have like which clothes to wear today, which shirt should I wear today, what kind of makeup I should wear today, which tie I should wear today. Similarly, what kind of ceremony can we perform today? What would be appropriate, opposed to what is actually needed to the given situation. Jamgu Kongto, my root guru, personal teacher, is was constantly talking about that problem. And he wasn't happy about where things are going about. And he wasn't very inspired to work on a larger scale, because he felt that unless that he could create nucleus or situations of intense students who could work together and act as nucleus, dynamic situation, that he couldn't get the message to the rest of the public. There were a lot of problems that you might think that Tibetans are the only world where spirituality is practiced quite freely and enlightening. That's not the case. We had our own problems and difficulties in keeping up with the practice properly, tradition properly. Recently, that is to say, before 1950s, in Tibet, there were a lot of gorgeous temples being built, fantastic decorations we have done, lots of brocades, lots of ceremony, lots of statues, lots of chötens. Lots of horses, lots of mules. Fantastic cooking, good tea. But not much learning, not much sitting. It has become a problem. Jamgu Kongtrul was very pissed off. Sometimes he loses his temper without any reason. And we thought that he's blaming on us, our misbehaving. But he's talking something greater, and that is terrible what's going on around here in this country. Not only him alone, but a lot of other teachers begin to talk about that. It's whole things begin to flip into a lower level spirituality. Only thing what we needed was American tourists to come along. Fortunately, thanks to Chairman Mao Zedong, that didn't happen, which actually saved us in some sense. There are a few readings connected with that. The first part of the portion of the Sadhana, why Sadhana was written, it's stated in the book.
This is the darkest hour of the dark ages, in which disease, famine, and warfare are raging like the fierce north wind. The Buddha's teaching has waned in strength. The various schools of the Sangha are fighting amongst one another with sectarian bitterness. And although the Buddha's teaching was perfectly expounded, and there have been many reliable teachings since then from other great gurus, yet they pursue intellectual speculations. The sacred mantra has strayed into Pön, and the yogis of Tantra are losing the insight of meditation. They spend their whole time going through villages and performing little ceremonies for material gain. On the whole, no one acts according to the highest code of discipline, meditation, and wisdom. The jewel-like teaching of insight is fading day by day. The Buddha's teaching is used merely for political purposes and to draw people together socially. As a result, the blessings of spiritual energy are being lost. Even those with great devotion are beginning to lose heart. If the Buddhas of the 3 times and the great teachers were to comment, they would surely express their disappointment. So, to enable individuals to ask for their help and to renew spiritual strength, I have written this sadhana of the embodiment of all the siddhas.
There were a lot of problems, obviously. It turned out to be dying culture, dying discipline, dying wisdom. Except a few of us, we could say quite proudly, who had managed to feed the lamp, burning lamp, with a few drops of oil that's available. And suddenly there's an invasion from the insect eater barbarians called the Chinese come along and they presenting their doctrine called a communism, and the term they used is similar word as Sangha, for holding together communal living situation to raise the morale of the mass, but it turned out to be not quite the same as the concept of Sangha. So there's no practice, no discipline, no spirituality, and that went through. And finally, realizing that problem by the communists, that they can't actually indoctrinate anybody, basically, fundamentally, so they have to use further greater pressure, invasions, arresting spiritual leaders and political leaders, putting them in the prison, asking them to do something about, which further intensified antagonism rather than that these political leaders came out or spiritual leaders came out. They just told the story of what had happened to them, which created further problems. I don't want to make this particular session of a talk as a political pep talk as such, but you'll be very interested to know that in the history of communism, for the first time, that the workers actually rebelled against the communism was exceptional. That took place in Tibet. The workers were not all that aggravated, pissed off by what's happening in Tibet. They were well off in their own way, lots of space, lots of farm, and maybe they're hard up in some areas of comfort and things like that, but our people are very tough. They can handle the hard winter as soft winter. They appreciate the snow and the rain, and they appreciate the traveling. They don't need helicopters or motor cars to journeying back and forth. Everybody's good in strength. They've got huge lungs to breathe in high level of altitude. We are tough people. And the peasants took pride in those things naturally, obviously. And when their particular territory, that their faith and security is based on some kind of trust and faith into the teaching, into the church, which is at the same time slightly crumbling at the same time. still remained, and new rekindling situation took place for a few months, I would say about 9 months, that peasants rose against the communists, which is the first time in the history of communism such a thing took place. And I was forced to leave my country, and people from my monastery sent messenger by saying, come back, we would like to establish underground monastery. I wrote them back saying, give up, we'll be suicidal. I'm going to go out of this country, trying to find elsewhere such particular work. So, that's that, and hopefully they received the message. And left my country. I took journey, walk across the country. All of this described in the Born in Tibet, actually. But I appreciated enormously that how beautiful the country was. Although we had any chance to see the mountain ranges after mountain ranges, because we are not to go down to the villages. They might have communist spies there to recapture anybody who's trying to escape. So we try to avoid them, but fantastic mountain range in the middle of winter, fantastic lakes on the top of a plateau, fantastic landscape and a good deal of snow, obviously, and biting cold at the same time, which is very refreshing, fantastic. Finally, I got myself able to cross the border and come to India. And the first plane trip, there's a cargo airplane which is waiting for us, organized by the Indian Army. And I was excited to fly for the first time. And it was a good trip. A lot of my colleagues got sick and they were very nauseated, but I was very interested in getting to a new world. And then we arrived in the refugee camp. We spent about 3 months. And on that particular life, which was interesting in some sense, because there is a chance to actually explore what is outside of our world. That India is particularly very exciting in some sense, that we read all about India in our books, we study about them, and we talk about the Brahmins, we talk about their cotton cloth, and they wrap around and they talk about the Brahmanistic ceremonies and all kinds of things, and everything's interesting, that finally history come back to life. And it was good to be in India. Fantastic to be in India. And finally the situation come to be in my personal life is that I was invited to go to Europe and managed to serve, traveled in a ship, what's called Oriental Lines or something called, shipping company. However, it was interesting to be people in the boat who most of them are Occidental people, and fancy dressing party, and they had a race on the boat, on the ship, and lots of parties, and every night there is entertainment of some kind, which was interesting. That's where first time I had actually tasted English beer, which is bitter, I thought it was a terrible taste, and I can't imagine why people like that stuff. We got in England, certain amount of hassle with the customs, and but everything turned out to be okay, nevertheless. And then my visiting or permanent stay in Oxford University was also interesting, that there is a lot of chance to communicate, work with the people from the Christendom, soaked in the Christianity and Englishness into their bones and marrows, still being wise, is a very mind-blowing experience. And such dignified people, very good people there, but at the same time that you kind of ruffle their particular sharp edges, and if you made a wrong move, they're going to frozen to death, or else they're going to strike deadly. And hearing talks given on comparative religion and Christian contemplation and philosophy and psychology, and how to struggle at the same time, trying to understand the lectures, at the same time have to study language, and constantly going to the evening classes that are organized by the city for foreign students, and trying to study language at the same time, as well as trying to go to the talks on the philosophy during the day, which is very difficult, challenging, particularly in Oxford, that certain particular lectures were given there for the students, highly specialized lectures, that they don't build you the basic ground of anything particularly. They presume you already know the basic ground, so they particularly talking about certain highlights, certain high points of that particular issue, which was very interesting and very confusing. And probably you might be able to pick up 1 or 2 points each session at the early stages. After that, situation continuing nevertheless, but some kind of situations to work and relate with possible students of Buddhism that I may be able to relate with the connections of the London Buddhist Society, which is an aged organization, which is very much concerned with its form than its duty as Buddhists. Quite a lovable setup. I was invited by a group of people in Scotland, which they have a community there, teach and instruct meditation. Very nice, rolling hills and fantastic place, somewhat damp and wet, cold. Environment is friendly, at the same time beautiful, but however it was acceptable. Having spent a long time with them back and forth, commuting back to Oxford and going to Scotland, finally they offered I should take over the trusteeship of that particular place, and the place is going to be up to ours to work with. And the interesting point there is that there's some sense of that whole environment, which is a completely alien, untapped as far as I'm concerned, but at the same time there's some kind of enlightenment possible potential enlightenment is taking place in that particular world, which is very strange, sort of mixed sweet and sour kind of situation. Well, being there, working there, took me several years, and I said goodbye to my friends in Oxford and my teachers and tutors. Great people there. Glad to leave Oxford for a while. And then I visited the second time. Oxford looks much better than it used to be, because for the very reason I don't have to live there. Situation in Scotland turned out to be somewhat stagnating and stuffy. Not room for expansion, particularly very much, except a once a month visit to the Buddhist Society, which are filled with old ladies and old gentlemen, and not very much of discussion. And longest sitting practice they could sit is 20 minutes. Unless they feel, if you can sit through 20 minutes, they feel very heroic. And we can't actually mention anything but yintons to them. And they completely freak out. To their point of view, being good Buddhist is being good Anglicans, Church of England. Some kind of problems there. Anyhow, that problem still continues up to this point. My visit to India is planned at a certain point there, and I thought it would be appropriate time to visit and check again, so to speak. Visited His Holiness Rinpoche. My trip to Bhutan was invitation of the Queen of Bhutan, Ashi Kesang. She's very gracious, and she's somewhat frustrated that she can't speak proper Tibetan, and she was hoping that her English is much better than her Tibetan, so I could teach her in English about the practice, which I tried to do so a certain amount. But she's a rather lazy student, and she doesn't want to sit too long. But it's a good intention. She will now become the royal mother of the present king of Bhutan. And I took my retreat in Taktsang, which is outside of Pato, the second capital of Bhutan, where Padmasambhava actually meditated, and he manifested himself as Lord Yatrola. Being in Taktsang is very, at the beginning nothing happens. It just looks like another mountain range that you have a little place to live and stay there. Nothing very much happened. It's not particularly impressive at all at the beginning. I didn't get any sort of sudden feedbacks of jerk at all. Very basic, very ordinary. Another part of Bhutan, simply. As guest of the Queen, that our needs were provided as part of the tax payment of the local people around Taktsang. They brought us with eggs and firewoods and meat as part of their tax payment, which they're very happy to give their tax payment to a holy lama to fulfill that function rather than giving down to the administration. And they were very kind and very nice people around, and we provide with the servants and everything. Few days was rather disappointing. What is this place? It's supposed to be great. And what's happening here? Maybe this is the wrong place they've chosen. Maybe there's Taktsang somewhere else, the real Taktsang. Nothing happened actually. And as a lot of more time is spent on that particular area, which was something like 10 days a week, and things begin to come up. Very powerful nature, that there is a feeling of empty-heartedness once you get there, once you begin to click to the atmosphere. And nothing particularly full and a confirming experience, but when you get there feeling very empty-hearted, there's nothing in your body, that you don't exist, there's some kind of sense of completely vacant out feeling, sense of vacancy. And when you go further with that, there's begin to pick up a little sharp points. The blade from the prubhas, or the rough edges of the vajra, the dorji. And begin to pick up all that. Behind the whole thing there is a huge conspiracies taking place, or something like that. Something is very live. And the Geku of the place and the Konye of the place, which is temple keeper, keep on asking me every morning, did you have a nice dream? Did you have any kind of revelationary dreams? And what do you think of this place? And did anything terrible to this place? And is this still there? Keep on asking me. Well, it seems everything's okay, and thank you. And there's a very interesting point about the Kagyu tradition and the Nyingma tradition brought together very powerfully. There's that so much influence of the practicing lineage is there. Austerity and its own pride of practicing lineage, as well as there is some sense of wildness which is beyond practicing lineage alone, which is also there, and such point that the sadhana, what we have translated here in the English language, just came through without any problems. And the sense of immense presence of Karmapakshi, Doji toilet there, definitely. And I told myself, you must be joking. Nothing's happened here, but still something's coming behind the whole thing, that there is actually immense energy and power is taking place. And the first line which come to my head about 5 days before I wrote the sadhana itself, was keep on coming back in my mind, keep on ringing that sound, is the taking the refuge part at the beginning, earth, water, fire, and that passage is beginning to come through. And I decided to write down, and it took me about altogether about 5 hours to write the whole thing. And during the writing of the sadhana, I didn't have to particularly think of the next line or what to say about the whole thing. Everything just came through very simply, very naturally, as if that whole thing is memorized. Prior to that particular situation. And I think the whole approach there is that it's has some kind of qualities of if you really are in such a situation, you can't manufacture one, but if the situation comes to you, you can record them. And also that is connected with that little poem that I composed at the end, which was when the sadhana was written already, that part has become suddenly that whole spontaneousness is gone, and that I have to actually say thank you, and somehow I had to write that particular poem at the end, which was written deliberately. You see the differences between the rest of the rhythm of the sadhana and in its feeling, and the poem that written last, which was very deliberate. There's differences between the two. And the poem is more of a platitude, and the rest of it is more of a spontaneous word that come through. Yeah.
In the copper mountain cave of Taktsang, the mandala created by the Guru, Padma's blessing, entered in my heart. I am the happy young man from Tibet. I see the dawn of Mahamudra and awaken into true devotion. The Guru's smiling face is ever present. On the pregnant Dakini tigress takes place the crazy wisdom dance of Karmapakshi Padmasambhava, uttering the sacred sound of Hum. His flow of thunder energy is impressive. The Dorje and Purba are the weapons of self-liberation. With penetrating accuracy, they pierce through the heart of spiritual pride. One's faults are so skillfully exposed that no mask can hide the ego, and one can no longer conceal the no dharma which pretends to be dharma. Through all my lives, may I continue to be the messenger of dharma and listen to the song of the king of yanas. May I lead the life of a bodhisattva.
I feel that still that poem possessed a lot of platitude, and it seemed to be a different feeling than the rest of the sadhana that was written, because there was just some personal acknowledgement of one's own stuff at the same time. Well, I think people in the future who relate with this particular sadhana is used as inspiration at the same time, as a potential way for making further journey, and inspiration from their point of view is just to wake yourself from deepest confusion and chaos and self-punishment, and able to get into a higher level that you can actually celebrate within that. Any questions?
Okay. So apparently my sound was not so good the last time. Ina, is it better this time?
I think is much better. Yeah, it's good.
Great. Thank you very much. Yeah, one moment. Okay, good. So, what the Vidyadhara was talking about there is incredibly personal, making a personal connection in a very powerful place with especially the lineage of Padmasambhava and the lineage of Karmapakshi, the second Karmapa, who are conjoined as the central figure in this sadhana. So the feast table we're being invited to is one where the qualities and practices and nature of principally these two lineages are brought together. And in a previous seminar about the Sadhana Mahamudra, which is found in the book about the Sadhana Mahamudra, the Vidyadhara discusses at more detail about what the merging of these two streams signify. And in particular, he says that in general, the ancient lineage of the Nyingma represents the quality primarily of insight or space, tremendous penetrating insight, penetrating rikpa, and vast spaciousness. And the practicing lineage of the Kagyu is represents and embodies strong emotion and love and phenomena. So space and phenomena dancing together. And he says these two make a particularly powerful combination because insight on its own, he says, could stand to be more emotional, and emotion could stand to be more insightful. So when we have a powerful insight, and there's powerful insight, we might become somewhat detached, almost lost in the spaciousness. And emotion obviously can carry us away. So having the quality of insight with emotion makes the whole thing more powerful. And that is as I say, the feast table that we're being invited to. And we're invited into this lineage without obligation to do it. We are not coerced. We are invited, and we therefore enter freely. Yet, you might say there are certain protocols. Here in Sicily, for example, whenever you show up at somebody's home, you always bring something. It's how it's done. You don't show up without anything. When you show up at the table of this particular lineage feast, as has been emphasized, you are giving away your ambition. You're giving away your striving for attainment. You're giving away your territoriality. And you are opening yourself up. And you're not looking for a particular external savior. And as it says at the end of the sadhana, hopes of achieving and abstaining are all used up. So you come exhausting your ambition to get somewhere or to leave somewhere. Again, at this very rarefied level. And finally, the Vidyadhara ends on a note of talking about inspiration and celebration. So it's celebratory. How wonderful to take part in the Dharma of non-ego, of undercutting spiritual materialism in body, speech, and mind. So we could have some discussion questions at this point. We have about 25 minutes.
The chat is open for everyone, and please raise your virtual hand if you want to ask your question.
Ina, if it comes up in the chat, I'm going to ask you to please read them out loud, and if you don't mind. And
Sure.
of course, you can call on people as they come up if somebody raises their hand.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I know.
Hi, Barry. Thanks
Hello,
for
I know.
teaching very much. Thanks for your teaching very much. Very much appreciated. I have one interesting question. Because in the Sadhana of Mahamudra, it has been mentioned several times, free of concept. And also in the Sadhana of Mahamudra, it is also mentioned like a discriminative awareness. So when I was doing the meditation, I was kind of like a little bit confused about this too. So take for example, when I see the table, for example, how can I have the discriminative awareness but free of concept? So maybe I want to ask this question. Yeah. Thank you.
So you're giving the example of sitting at a table, for example?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's a table?
What's the table? Table is something we used to put something on it, and maybe we have dinner around it. So
Okay. So maybe we have dinner. Do we do other things with this thing we call table?
yeah. Well, I was just thinking, well, if we set ourselves free from the conception, so we just don't look ourselves into this concept, but being blind with some other possible usage of this table. Is that correct?
Well, so the nature of all concept is constructed. And if I want to ask you to move a table, it's convenient to be able to have this label. The issue is not to have the label. The issue is the solidification of the label. There's a subtle sense of my table. And as we've been emphasizing, I think throughout, this is not something that you work to eliminate in one step. Gradually, the Vidyadhara says the world, the phenomenal world, as you practice more with shamatha vipassana, and especially vipassana in terms of insight, the phenomenal world becomes more, he says, crumbly, not as solid. So table is the kind of concept that we can play with philosophically, but it's kind of easy to use such an example. But what about enemy or the concept of obstacle? That person is an obstacle, right? So when we establish and solidify in concept, then the whole world gets built around such concepts. And you can cut them on the spot at times, but in general, the methodology is wearing down, like water wears down a rock, and one needs a lot of patience. So you don't just kind of flip into that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It takes a long time and
Yes.
deliberate
Well,
practice needed.
it takes a long time and also on the spot. We've been talking about that. You have both the sudden path, the abrupt path, and the gradual path, and they can work in concert. So, if you do a retreat, Trungpa Rinpoche had a retreat that he named the retreat place Lo Trel, this is Tibetan, Lo Trel Dzong. Dzong in Tibetan means fortress. Lo Trel is freedom from conceptuality. So it was the freedom from conceptuality fortress. And so during that particular retreat, you entered that retreat, you might get a pretty hefty taste of freedom from concept. But then you have to go out into the world with your own momentum of habitual pattern. And, certainly we solidify concept. So both gradual and sudden, and suddenly gradual, and gradually sudden.
I see.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ina?
Yes, we have Maura with her hand
Okay,
on.
good.
Just give me a
Sant'Angelo.
second.
Yes.
Okay.
You're in Sicily, but I grew up in
Exactly.
Abruzzo. I grew up in Abruzzo, though.
Okay, Abruzzo. Great. I had some
And I'm
wine
going
from
back there
Abruzzo.
next week.
Great. I had some wine from Abruzzo a few
Do
minutes
you?
ago.
It's
So
Montepulciano d'Abruzzo.
Montepulciano di Abruzzo, yes. Oh,
Yeah,
anyway,
one of
go
my
ahead.
people, says my sister. So I have both a practical question and one that's related to, I guess it's all practical question. So I've been reading the Sadhana of Mahamudra with a group off and on for several years. And we tend to split different parts when people don't have enough breath or time to do it. So one of the things that I find is that there's a lot of emotion that it brings up, but because we're doing it in a group practice, there's almost no way for me to deal with whatever is coming up. That's one. So I really appreciate the fact that we have been studying it here for the last few weeks or several weeks. But the question is, one, how do I deal with whatever comes up? Do I go back and say, reread that portion for myself and contemplate it? Or even do analytical meditation or just sit with it? Or do I just spend more time reading the book, Sadhana of Mahamudra? But it does bring up an awful lot of stuff, both because of other practices I've done, places that I've visited, and just the whole thing around the Sadhana of Mahamudra. So I
Sure.
don't know
So
if
I
there's a
think,
question in there. I don't know what it
I
is.
think, yeah, no, I get it. I think the most important thing is to, if I may, to think in terms of the three prajnas: hearing, contemplating, and meditating. So in terms of the emotion that emerges, the Vidyadhara was talking about in the context of the sadhana coming through for him, that there was, tremendous power. And that, so that tremendous power is recreated, reenacted when we do the sadhana. So how do we bring that power to ground? Shamatha vipassana. That's the first thing, the meditating part.
Right.
So the three prajnas work as a cycle. So you could go back either on your own or with other people and look at a section of the sadhana, and then very importantly, contemplate it, which means thinking about it, letting it roll around in your head. You could take it as far as analytical meditation, but I don't think you necessarily have to go that far. But you can apply a principle in contemplation that's known as Trungdun and Nyedun in Tibetan. So the Trungdun is the literal meaning. So you start with a literal meaning. So, and you don't move from that too fast. So let's say you're looking into desire, hatred, and other hindrances are self-liberated. Desire, what may be referred to there? What's desire about? What are we actually looking at? And then word by word, and then self-liberated. It is through the attention to the literal meaning that the profound meaning, Nyedun, emerges. And we have a tendency to want to rush to profound meaning rather than let it emerge for us. Does that make sense?
Actually, it does make sense. And it also, I think I had a certain fear of going into an analytical meditation in a sense, rather than just be and liberate by itself.
Yeah.
And I think that was my conflict, actually. So you just pointed it out, and I truly appreciate that.
Yeah, I think thank you. Hearing, contemplating, meditating, the contemplating part is not discussed all that much, and it's rather helpful and important that, there are ways to helpfully think about things. And then when you're on the cushion, a thought about what you were thinking about might emerge, and you don't have to slap it. Oh, I'm supposed to be meditating. I can't have that insight now. Right. It emerges for you. And this works as a cycle. So it'll create a curiosity. And then you go back and just, anyway, thank you very much. Good question.
No, this is helpful because you have that injunction, you should not practice by yourself, that to me extended to much more than it needed to. So thank you very much.
And the book is very helpful in that regard. All right, we better get on to some other folks here.
There is a question in the chat from Nadia, but Nadia, feel free to raise your virtual hand if you want to follow up, because the question is, once we are in the mandala of non-ego, how to communicate or relate with the mandala of ego?
Well, you have no choice. It's our home base. There's, so much momentum of habitual pattern that propels us forward to ego orientation. So, in fact, as we invoke the sacred mandala, it's what it's doing is puncturing holes in that. It's just puncturing holes in that, and at times there may be, it's some sense of sacredness and non-ego that emerges, and then good old ego orientation freaks out and rushes right on in, and then maybe it gets punctured again, and so just a lot of patience like that, just letting it emerge. Does that make any sense, Nadia?
Yes, the follow-up question was how to relate, because it's like if we would place ourselves in the position of the olive in the fruit salad, like if it's the olive in our fruit salad, but it's also with outside. You know, when you arrive in at work or something, would it? But yes, it makes me think of the cocoon, like puncturing a hole in the cocoon. Yeah, yeah, it's a good answer. Like, and
very much so.
slowly.
Yeah, you're
Thank you.
puncturing a hole in the cocoon, and you know it's the when you within the sadhana, when you embody that sacred mandala, it's all phenomena are sacred within that, and that's what punctures holes in the. It's not like I imagine myself, Barry Boyce, who was born in New York City in such and such a year, is now going to be Dorje Trollo. There's just Dorje Trollo-ness. And then Dorje Trollo-ness will work on that momentum of habitual pattern. You skip the step of you becoming something else. You don't need to do that. You are the fruit salad. So,
And could I say that I feel it could help, like if after the practice you said it's like a train. I drop everything and I go back to I go back to my life. I don't try to bring Dorje Trollo in my life or everything.
Right.
Like I just drop everything. I'm at this now. I'm at my destination, and I just go on with my life.
Yeah. I mean, if you get off the train and you know you're hallucinating that you're riding on a pregnant tigress.
Yeah,
down the street,
it would be hard.
It's not going to be much help.
Yeah.
Talk about conceptuality.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
The train has a schedule. It's going to come back. You get on it again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Very much so.
There is a question from Juliana. Could you expand on the guru? Are we visualizing Dorje Trollo and Karma Pakshi as our gurus?
Well, there's levels of guru. So they're guru in the sense that they are a conduit, a vehicle for enlightened mind, an entryway for enlightened mind. So, you know, the guru in person, what we call the Nirmana Kaya guru, is a person who we could call using our cell phone, or to show up in a physical place and hear a talk and maybe ask a question. You know, the whole point of that guru is, starting with I'm talking about the Nirmanakaya, the physical guru. A genuine guru is not looking for an acolyte, not looking for somebody to serve them, to be subservient. They're looking for a colleague. Their interest is in colleagueship, having somebody joining in. But of necessity, there is some kind of hierarchy, because generally if we approach a guru, we might be in a state where we need some help and need to enter the path. So at the level of the phenomenal guru, well, let's just talk about gurus like Karmapakshi and Dorje Trollo. Dorje Trollo being an emanation of wrathful compassion of the lineage stream of Padmasambhava. So that's symbolic, Sambhogakaya. So it's described, with the flames coming out and holding a Dorje and Purba and riding this pregnant tigress. So there are many different paintings of Dorje Trollo, and they don't all look exactly the same. It's not like, you can find the ultimate Instagram account that's got the absolute, that's Dorje Trollo. Dorje Trollo is a symbolic power of the lineage coming through. These are subtle things, obviously, to consider, but that you're connecting with a certain kind of lineage power that exists in this world. And so that's what we're connecting with, that lineage power. It's not a guru who has a chat with you or you have a Q&A at a talk. And then the phenomenal guru, the Dharmakaya level, is the how the world provides messages and possibilities and communication. So it's guru at a particular kind of level. So I hope that was helpful.
Hello, Barry. Thank you.
Hello again.
Thank you so much for these teachings. I'm a Nyingma practitioner, focused on Dzogchen, and the thought of bringing Nyingma and Kagyu together in Mahamudra and Dzogchen together has been a radical and emotional experience for me. So one of the, I had the opportunity to practice the sadhana with the ocean team this week and had emotions arise in the practice that were disturbing to me, and I thought had already been dealt with. As a Dzogchen practitioner, I would have seen, as I left the practice, I would have seen that it's absolute emptiness, not attached to it. Everything is the guru, everything is perfect, and not even explore it. I'd like to have you share a little bit more about the integration of the two, because they absolutely seem more powerful than by themselves. I'm not sure I'm articulating this very well.
No, I get the question, and I think you're not only asking a, what I say, a doctrinal question, but also a practice question. Mm-hmm. Because you have a long-standing, I assume, Dzogchen practice. So I can't, in this context, I can't address all of that. I think that's going to be an ongoing exploration with your own fellow Sangha members and teachers, and just something to begin to just keep exploring patiently and see what emerges. So for your benefit, I want to note something from the beginning of the sadhana. So the there's a section that says yeah, my whole being is Dorje Trollo and my form is Karma Pakshi. My speech is Mikyo Dorje and my mind is Rangjung Dorje. With that unwavering conviction, fearlessly enjoy the Mahamudra and attain the experience of Mahati. So that's that contrast he was talking about. So from the Mahamudra side, it's talking about enjoyment, phenomenal, right?
Mm-hmm.
From the Mahati side, he's talking about the attainment of that
Right.
spacious experience. So this is an uncannily, I'm forgetting the word for this, but the Vidyadhara talks about in this section of the sadhana, this is a unique section that has to do with a particular notion of taking a leap. And it's a leap to where you already are. So you leap across this chasm, but in fact, the leap is to where you already are, in a sense of suddenness. So maybe I'm answering a subtle and slightly obscure question with something that's also obscure, but maybe not. Do you understand this notion of a leap?
Yes.
Oh, you're frozen maybe.
No, I'm not frozen.
Barbara, you there?
I thought I was.
That was leap. I think Barry is frozen.
I think I'm here. Is Barry frozen?
I think Barry
Oh,
just took a leap, but
yeah, Barbara,
You
you're
leaped-
back.
You leaped with me.
Oh, yeah, that's great. My internet connection suddenly became unstable. That's kind of beautiful. Well, maybe that's it for today. We'll just
Thank you.
take the
Thank you
leap to
so much.
where we already are.
Do we have time for the last question, final question, Barry? Konchuk is asking, what is this? Okay.
One more question, sure.
What is the symbolism of the tigers being pregnant? Thank you.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. So there's the tigress is a symbol of fierceness, and the fact that the tiger is pregnant makes that tiger even more fierce because it's got more to protect. So, and the fierceness is, fierceness toward ego clinging. So this is the particular vehicle that this very powerful emanation of wrathful compassion rides on. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
I guess this is it with the questions, and we have Tashi.
I just want to actually take this opportunity to really thank Barry for these last 6 classes. Thank you, Barry. Personally, I've taken away so many insights from this, from what you've told us, and Barry is not only the most knowledgeable person I know about this sadhana, but actually steeped in it, kind of lives and breathes it. So I really want to express our appreciation on behalf of everybody. Thank you so much for guiding us through this the last 6 weeks, Barry. And I should just mention a word about starting next week. We'll be going to the Shravakayana path. If you go to the course website, you can see the topics and the readings for the next 4 weeks. The classes will be taught by Valerie Lorik, who's a Sangyam of Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche, by Harry Einhorn, who will lead the practice on Parinirvana Day, the celebration of the Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche's anniversary. And 2 classes will be led by Judy Leaf. Judy is the editor of both of the texts that we're using for this class, so we're delighted to have her too. So next week, Ina will send out the reading for next week's class, so we'll be back to the weekly readings and the format that we had before. So thank you again, Barry, very much for everything you've done these last 6 weeks. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been my great pleasure and wonderful to work with you all. And yeah, good luck going forward. So
Tashi, will you lead us through the
Closing prayers.
dedication prayer?
Yes. So we'll end with the dedication of merit, which we could all do together. So this is our dedication of merit from the last 6 weeks. We're dedicating this. So let's do it together. By this merit, may all attain omniscience.
May it
defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may all beings be free.
As long as space
remains, as long as the world remains, may I too remain to alleviate the suffering of the world. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Barry.
so much.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, you Dhammapalas and sisters.
Buddy.
You all.
Thank you.